Hello everybody, welcome back to Bree's Toys. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today I'm doing a video called What I Look For in a Toy. So this is going to be a little bit longer than usual videos. I'll try not to let it get too long, so please bear with me. I have a lot of rules when it comes to collecting toys. First and foremost, I'm not necessarily just looking for toys I had as a kid or toys I could have had as a kid, either things I knew about or friends had, etc., toys I was exposed to. Yes, a big part of my toy collection is going to be stuff from my childhood, either, like I said, toys I owned, toys I played with at friends' houses or saw commercials for on TV or saw in the toy store, etc. These will be ones that I have nostalgia for or some sort of an emotional attachment to, especially the ones I had as a kid. Now, I do not plan on rebuying every toy I had as a kid. This would be impossible because I had a lot of toys as a kid. Not that my parents had a lot of money because we were poor, but they shopped yard sales and thrift stores, and I did work odd jobs, to get extra money to buy toys. So I was able to acquire a lot of toys. So I'm going to go through the different types of toys and what I look for in that type of toy. So I will be talking about dolls. What am I looking for in a doll? I'll be talking about plushies and teddies. I'll be talking about action figures. I'll be talking about vehicles and play sets. I'll be talking about Hot Wheels specifically. What am I looking for in a Hot Wheel? Legos. What do I want in a Lego? What do I want from a board game? What am I looking for in a video game? Because I have already done a video where I do consider video games toys. So, let's just get that up front. Maybe not trading cards. I think I'm going to do a whole video on trading cards, but I don't think that'll be on this channel. I think that'll be on my main channel, Stephanie Bree, which I'll have a link to in my channels if you go to my page. And also, I am going to do, some of these are going to get their own videos down the road where I'll go even deeper dive. But for now, let's just do this. Alright, so I broke it down into dolls, plushies, Hot Wheels, action figures, video games, board games, Legos, kids' toys, electronics, and puzzles. Kids' toys will be things like Rubik's Cube. Or no, that would be puzzles. But kids' toys would be things like jump rope, yo-yo, etc. So what am I looking for in the generic kids' toys? Nerf guns, etc. Water guns, etc. So let's start with dolls. I'm going to start by showing you one of my favorite dolls. This is the one I did a video of this already. This is Frankie Stein from Monster High. What I'm looking for, what I like about this doll is, one, she's cute. She's got a cute outfit, and, she's an adorable looking figure. And she's got some good articulation. That's a bonus. I don't necessarily need articulation in a doll. What I'm looking for in a doll is aesthetics. They have to be aesthetically appealing to me. Which means, most likely, pretty, cute, or something else that catches my attention. Goth catches my attention. Cheerleaders catch my attention. Things like that. Barbie dolls. I shop, when I buy Barbie dolls, I pick based on either the outfit that she is wearing, if it's a generic Barbie, because the generic Barbie it's the same doll. Or I look at the doll itself and decide if there's something unique about that particular doll. Or in the case of like Space Barbie, which I have, it's because I think it's cool. Astronaut Barbie is cool. Which I haven't showed my Astronaut Barbie yet, but I'll get there. Gonna have to get a new lighter eventually. Now, I do have Rainbow Bright, which is an offshoot. So let's talk about Rainbow Bright. This falls under the category of toys I had as a kid or was aware of as a kid. So what I'm looking for in Rainbow Bright is basically the colors. I want the yellow one, I want the purple one, maybe the blue one, and obviously the main one, Rainbow Bright herself. If there's a pink one, I'll get her. I have no interest in the green one or the red one or any other color. If there's a brown one, no thank you. It's based exclusively on the color of the kid. The color of their hair, the color of their outfit. Disney princesses. I have a assortment of Disney princess dolls. My Disney princess dolls are based on which movies I enjoyed. So, Cinderella, Snow White, etc. Ones from movies I watched. So if I didn't watch the movie, I most likely don't have a doll of that princess. And if I didn't like the movie, I absolutely do not have a doll of that princess and never will. I'll spoil it. I do not like Pocahontas, the movie. I do not have a Pocahontas doll, and I never will. I also don't like The Lion King, but I don't think there's any Disney princesses in The Lion King. There's a lot of Disney movies I don't like. There's fewer ones that I do like than ones that I don't like, because I only like a handful. I do really love Aladdin. I just did a video on Aladdin. So yes, I do have a Jasmine doll, and I will have other Jasmine. I'll have a Jasmine action figures in my action figure line as well. So Jasmine is one that I like. That's mostly what I'm looking for in dolls. I want Barbie scale dolls, the 12-inch dolls. I don't necessarily want shorter dolls. So I most likely won't have any Bratz. I say most likely because I look at the dolls, the Bratz dolls, and some of them do look cute. But I'm not likely to collect many or any of them until after a long while. So mostly what I'm looking for are Barbie, Disney princesses, Rainbow High, and Monster High. Let's just briefly talk about American Girl doll, and I will touch on Cabbage Patch Kids. So American Girl doll I have no interest in because, one, they're expensive, and they're a premium doll, and two, they're too big. I don't want dolls of that size. I don't want baby dolls. So I don't have any baby dolls in my collection. And I won't have any of the, other than the Rainbow Bright, which is the biggest doll I own, I won't have any other dolls in that scale or size. I like smaller dolls. Cabbage Patch Kids. I have a channel called Horror Trance. Check it out. I talk about horror movies. I did a video on scary dolls. Scary dolls. Cabbage Patch Kids are scary dolls. My Buddy dolls are scary dolls. Porcelain dolls are the scariest fucking dolls. I will never, not only will I never own a porcelain doll, I'll never be in the same room with a porcelain doll unless I have no say in it. And if in that case, I'll say, keep it the fuck away from me. So let's move on to plushies. This includes Care Bears. This would include teddy bears and things like that. So soft toys, soft dolls, basically. Obviously, I like Care Bears. I've already talked about them. I've already showed off my entire Care Bears collection. I have no interest in collecting any further Care Bears outside of a handful of alternative Care Bears from my childhood, meaning I want to buy back the actual literal vintage 80s Care Bear I had as a kid. As a companion to the modern Care Bear equivalent of that same Care Bear character that I have. Beanie Babies. Not interested. I have no interest in Beanie Babies or anything like Beanie Babies. So tie, none of that stuff. None of those little things. Plushies themselves, only characters from media I recognize, mostly video games. So most of my plushies are video game characters. I don't currently have any popples. I do consider popples under the soft dolls, the plushies category. Yes, I would like a popple. I don't know if I want to go so far as to say a collection of popples, but I had a very specific popple as a kid. I want to get that one again. And that's about it. And that's it for plushies. Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels is a category. It doesn't necessarily just mean the brand. It means basically die-cast cars in that scale. So this would be Johnny Lightning. This would be Matchbox. I have the same criteria for all of them. Basically, I am a car girl. I have a long history of working with cars and being connected to cars. My dad was a mechanic, so I have that. I've owned a lot of cars in my life. I worked at Advanced Auto Parts, and I worked at a shop and other places, so I have a lot of ties to cars. I have an affinity for cars. So die-cast cars, and this right now we're talking Hot Wheels scale, but I'll also talk about the larger scale, the collector's scale. I don't know what the actual scale is, but the big ones. So I'm looking for the same thing basically in either scale. Mostly, first thing I'm looking for, cars I recognize. Either cars I have owned or have driven or I'm familiar with. So ideally, this would be cars that exist. Real, actual licensed cars that exist. There's a handful of cars that I have owned in my life, some of which I want in Hot Wheel form, that I have not been able to find. Either they don't exist or I just haven't gone looking for them. My dream car, my first car as a driver, and the car I want to buy again someday as an adult, and the car I want to own in Hot Wheel form, is a 1984 Ford LTD, blue. Because that's the car I grew up with. Learned how to drive on. Also, actually I think it was gray. I had a blue one and a gray one. No, my blue one was a Chevy Celebrity, but it was the same fucking car. It was the same body and everything. It was the Chevy version, so it wasn't like identical, but it was the copycat, essentially. Anyways, and so I want cars like that. The second thing I look for in cars would be what I classify as neat cars. So especially when it comes to Matchbox, I'm looking for things like dump trucks, fire trucks, ice cream trucks, just neat real life vehicles, or kind of everyday things, to expand my Hot Wheels city. So this is pretty easy to find. The third thing I'm looking for are, quote, cool cars. These would be ones that have unique designs that aren't real at all, but they're pretty cool. Like I have a Lego car, I have a skateboard car, I have a bubble car, which is a bottle of bubbles. You blow the bubbles. I have a bubble car. I have a shark car. I have a lot of the Hot Wheels monster cars. I think they're cool. Things like that. The other thing I'm looking for in die-cast cars are licensed cars. These would be cars based on movies, TV shows, video games, comic books, etc. that I have an interest in. So Batmobiles. I have an assortment of Batmobiles. I've already showed off one or two on this channel already. I have more that I'll show off. I have a handful of Batmobiles, and I will continue buying additional Batmobiles because Batmobiles are fucking cool. So, yeah, there's that. And then anything that just catches my eye. So this one is, just if I look at it, I think, oh, that's neat. I want that. Action figures. I've already done a whole video on this, so I'm not going to dig too deep into it. Mostly, yes, I'm looking for action figures in toy lines I'm familiar with. So Ninja Turtles, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe, etc. But I'm also looking for action figures that I think have a unique aesthetic. So I've already showed off some of my Imperial action figures. I think those ones were kind of neat and unique. So my action figure criteria is it has to be in either the 3 3/4 inch scale or the 5.5, 6 inch scale. Either or. one or the other. Nothing else. So yeah, and it has to look interesting. So I don't necessarily have to be familiar with the property or the character or the toy line or the toy itself, just as long as it's aesthetically look pleasing to me. If it looks cool, if it's something I look at and think, yeah, I want that in my collection. Like, for example, I did that Shotgun Mary or something like that. I had no idea what Shotgun Mary even is. I just thought, I saw a picture of it on eBay and I thought, oh, it's $3, so I'll buy it. So I thought it was pretty cool. The other thing I look at is if it's something that's familiar to me. So, like, for example, horror characters or wrestling characters. Now, wrestling characters, I have a very strict criteria. I'm not going to list here. I have to be interested in the wrestler as a person, as a character on the wrestling shows. So this one, it isn't just going to be like, if they have a cool costume, that's not enough for me. I have to know who they are. I have to have seen them in a match on TV or in a pay-per-view or something. Otherwise, I have no interest in them. So if it's not a wrestler I'm familiar with, I will not buy their figure. Wrestling figures, I'll mostly buy in the 5 to 6 inch scale. But also, if they exist in other scales, I'll consider it, depending on, what it looks like. The other thing I'm looking at for action figures is articulation. I do not buy metal figures, and I do not buy figurines. Those little, like, army men figurines that have the little plastic clips on their feet, the little stands on their feet. Nothing you can't pose. It has to be posable. It has to be articulate. I'm not incredibly picky about articulation. As long as the head moves, the arms move, the legs move, I'm good. It doesn't have to have like 28 points of articulation for me to buy it. I'm not that picky. 5 or 6 points of articulation is good enough for me. And I'm looking for something that, the toy itself looks well made or produced, so like good quality plastic or good quality rubber or PVC or something like that. Like I said, I'm not interested in figurines. This also includes keychains or cake toppers, things of that sort. No interest. Don't even fucking bother. You're not going to find those on this channel or in my collection. Keychains, I have to put a pin in because I don't consider those toys. So I may or may not have a keychain collection. I may or may not show it off, but it won't be on this channel. It'll be on my other channel as like just a neat footnote in my collection, something I own. The other thing I'm looking for in action figures is action figures I had as a kid, obviously. Or knew about or wanted as a kid or played with at a friend's house, things like that. Kid action figures from my childhood in whatever capacity. Let's talk video games. Video games are very tricky. Again, I'm looking for video games that are interesting or familiar to me. I'm not looking for video games to play. I do not play as many video games as I used to. One of the reasons for that is I just don't have the time I used to, but also I don't have the interest, and I've never had the hand-eye coordination or the fine motor skills. So video games are incredibly difficult for me. And as I get older, my reflexes get slower. So video games get even harder for me than they already were. Games I used to be able to beat, I can't beat anymore. Games I never could beat, I can't even fucking play anymore. So, I'm 41 years old. And I have handicaps and mental disabilities. So it's difficult for me. Video games are difficult. Largely what I'm looking for video games is toys. So this would be like Super Nintendo games as an example. I consider the Super Nintendo a toy. Super Nintendo games are basically kids' toys. They're kids' games for the most part. By and large, don't at me. So things like Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, these are toys to me, I have a big PlayStation collection. I own PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4, and if I ever get the money, I may or may not get a 5, and I absolutely will, when the time comes, get a PSP and a PS Vita. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm looking for in a PlayStation game is something that is fun, or recognizable or playable. So I'm looking for franchises that I'm familiar with, but also interesting games, things that look neat. So, things like Diablo, or things that have a fantasy or horror aesthetic, or something similar. To save you the trouble, I'm not looking for anything anime, and I'm not looking for story-based games. So, those would be like The Last of Us, for an example. I'm not interested. And I'm not interested in the first-person shooters at all. It has to be something extremely special for me to give a shit. This would be like, Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, Duke Nukem, etc. It has to be unique or cool or interesting or special. So no Call of Duty, no Halo, or Battlefield, or any of the other 10,000 clones. No interest in those. Any generic military or cop or criminal or gangster or whatever shooter. This also means no Grand Theft Auto. I have no interest in Grand Theft Auto. I also have no interest in Assassin's Creed or games like it, or look like it, or play like it. I'm also looking for interesting hardware. This would be neat. This would be things like, for example, on the NES, this would be things like the Max, the NES Max, or the Advantage, or the Power Gloves, things of that sort. Just like interesting, neat, toy-like things. On the Sega Genesis or the PlayStation 1, PS2, this would be light gun controllers, this would be steering wheel controllers, flight stick controllers, joystick controllers, arcade stick controllers, etc. Anything like that, anything that's cool or interesting or fun. On the GameCube, it would be the bongo controller or the microphone, things like that. The e-reader, I think it's pretty fucking cool. I used to have an e-reader as a kid. I love the e-reader. So that's what I'm looking for in video games. Not necessarily something that's, quote, collectible, or that's like, popular or recognizable. It's just something that catches my eye, basically. Which is hard to explain because, mostly what I'm interested in is like fantasy and sci-fi and robots and skeletons, vampires, things like that, horror stuff. That's mostly what I'm interested in. So it's harder for me to define what I'm looking for in a video game. Board games, I'm looking for two types of board games. Type 1, the familiar games from my childhood. So this would be the red and blue Battleship set from the 80s. This would be the, the Clue board from the 80s. The Monopoly board is pretty damn generic. So, a familiar Monopoly board. Things like that. Games I recognize or played as a kid I'm familiar with. The other aspect to board games is something that I classify as neat or unique or interesting. So this would be something like, for example, I have the Rampage board game based on the arcade game Rampage. This one's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. Pac-Man. I have the Miss Pac-Man board game. This one's pretty neat. It's interesting. It's cool. Stuff like that. Something that jumps out at me. Something that's cool, original, or different. That's what I'm looking for in board games. Legos. Legos are iffy because I don't really consider them toys. I mostly consider Legos puzzle pieces. But they get their own category because puzzles are on this list as well. Mostly what I'm looking for in Legos, I'm looking for things that look interesting or unique. But I'm not looking for licensed Legos. I'm not looking for recognizable Legos. I'm looking for just generic Legos. So I want Lego City for the most part. Mostly Lego City stuff. I want hot dog stands. I want, UPS trucks. I want cop cars, fire engines, things like that. Just generic stuff. Just regular everyday stuff. So mostly Lego City. I have some Lego Creator, but again, it has to be like at least one of the three modes has to be cool or interesting to me. Very rarely will I buy licensed Legos. And the only two licensed Lego sets I will look at. No others. Well, there's three, but I'm not going to say the third one because that's not one I want to get into. There are three licensed Lego sets that I will buy from, or properties I will buy from. Lego set property 1 I will buy from, Minecraft. I'll buy anything Minecraft. The second one is Friends. Not Friends, the TV show Friends, but Lego Friends. It's a series of toys called Lego Friends. So Lego Friends. I want those. The third set I'm not going to identify here, and I'm not going to get into it because that's another video for another day, and I'm not ready to tackle it. So the ones I won't buy, no Star Wars, no Lord of the Rings, no Marvel or DC superheroes, none of that. No fucking SpongeBob. This middle finger's for SpongeBob. Or Nickelodeon or anything like that. Now, classic or vintage Legos, I have no interest in. So, like Lego Space, or like the Lego Camelot, or whatever it was called, or the Lego Island, or whatever, Caribbean Island, whatever it was called, the Pirates, or whatever. Not interested. Mostly because they're old, and they're expensive, and they're hard to find, and I don't need to track down something that's going to cost me a shit ton of fucking money that I have no real fucking interest in. Legos are one of those things that I have a passing interest in, at best. The other thing I'm looking at in a Lego set is I want unique blocks. I want blocks that you have to buy that set to get. Movable blocks, hinges, weird shaped blocks, things like that. Things that foster creativity, which is why I don't like the licensed sets, because they're specific. A Batman, the Lego pieces that you use to assemble a Batmobile can mostly only be used to assemble a Batmobile. Otherwise, you're stuck with a lot of weird random pieces that look weird outside of being assembled as a Batmobile. Quote, generic kids' toys. Mostly what I'm looking for here are things I either had as a kid or just knew about as a kid. So this is just your generic stuff. Yo-yo, Frisbee, Nerf, water guns. I base which ones of these I buy based on if I knew about it as a kid, or if I look at it and I think, okay, that looks cool. So this would be like Rubik's Cube, Etch-a-Sketch, 3D Viewfinder, things like that. Simon, things like that. Mr. Potato Head. By and large, I do not buy Little Tykes, Tonka, or, like the 1, 2, 3 toy lines, anything like that. Toddlers toys, I do not buy toddlers toys. I don't buy the, like, My Littlest Transformer, whatever it's called, the little Transformer bots or whatever they're called, or the play school toys. I don't buy anything like that. I don't want toys I had when I was 3 years old. I want toys I had when I was between 8 and 12 years old. For the most part. There are a handful of exceptions all across the board. Toys that I want that break the rules, toys that I don't want that break the rules. Electronics, there's some crossover with video games. I want Tiger handhelds. I want Tamagotchi. I want Nano Pets. Gigapets. I want Furbies. And I also want Pongs and plug-and-play games. So Pongs, specifically from the 1970s and early 80s. And plug-and-plays. These would be your Pac-Man plug-and-play, or your Galaga plug-and-play, or Mortal Kombat plug-and-play, etc. Where you plug the game in, you plug it into a TV and it's ready to go. But not your mini consoles. When I say minis, I mean NES Mini, Super NES Mini, PlayStation Mini, Sega Mini, etc. I'm not interested in those. And I have no interest or desire to buy retro clones. So this would be things like your Mr. FPS, or whatever it's called, FPGA, or whatever the fuck it's called. or the retro. I don't know what they're called. The ones that play cartridges from these old consoles, but they don't look anything like the old console systems. I don't have any interest in those. The retro clones, not interested. And this would also include things like the recent Atari video computer system, or the Intellivision Amico. I have no interest in shit like that. And sidebar, this would also include shit like the Ouya. I have no fucking interest in the Ouya. Electronics that do interest me are a lot of 70s and 80s electronics. So I'm looking for things like hi-fi systems. I'm looking for tape decks, equalizers, record players, FM and AM, FM radio tuners. Things like that. Mostly either wood grain or the silver plate is what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for things like portable handhelds, like Walkmans and other portable handheld radios and portable TVs. Movie and television media players. So I'm looking for things like Laserdisc, CED, HD DVD, Blu-ray players, video CD players, CD video players, Betamax VCRs, VHS VCRs, Super VHS VCRs, Digital VHS VCRs, D-Theater, 8mm high 8 video cassette VCRs. This would also include things like film projectors, 8mm, Super 8, 16mm, etc. And cameras. I'm real big on cameras, film cameras, digital cameras, etc. Photography cameras, as well as video cameras, camcorders. So I like to collect like VHS and Betamax camcorders, Video 8 camcorders, DV camcorders, camcorders with hard drives, camcorders that take SD cards, digital camcorders, SD camcorders, ED camcorders, HD camcorders, etc. I have an intense fascination for camcorders. This would also include digital watches, not smartwatches, so let's put that aside. So this would be things like Game & Watch, or your calculator watch, or your Casio watch, things like that. Your Ninja Turtle flip watch from back in the day, or your Transformer watch from back in the day. I have a fascination with those things. I have a fascination with calculators, fancy calculators and cheap generic calculators. I think calculators are cool. I like to play with calculators. And random funky dory electronics that have nothing to do with anything that I just think look cool. I don't even care what they do. I just think they look cool. And yes, old computers. So when I say old computers, I'm talking Atari ST computers, Atari 8-bit computers. I'm talking Apple II, Apple GS computers. I'm talking old 386 DOS computers. I'm talking Windows 95 computers. I'm talking Tandy 1000 computers. Amiga 500, Amiga 1000, Amiga 1500, etc. Commodore 64, PET, VIC-20, etc. IBM PC Junior. Things like that. Like really cool, really neat computers. Old retro computers. And TVs, which I'm going to do a whole video on TVs. Because I have a fascination with TV technology. So I want like primitive TVs. Like, the old 12-inch or whatever, 13-inch whatever, black and white rabbit ears, knobs on the side, those old school Atari 2600 TVs, I call them. Your big box console TVs, your wood grain TVs, your flat screen TVs, your projector TVs, your plasma screen TVs, etc. portable TVs and handhelds. Tablets. I have a fascination with tablets. I have a tablet. I'm not going to show it off. Maybe eventually I'll show it off, but not on this channel because I don't consider it a toy. And then, of course, electronic toys, like Teddy Ruxpin, for example, or that robot that that has the little membranes on it, or the Speak and Spell, things like that. That like neat little interesting oddball electronic toys. Furby, I've already said, Tamagotchi, etc. Tiger handhelds. I love Tiger handhelds. Anything like that. And robot toys, too. Those are pretty cool. Like robots like the little robot dog, the little remote control robot dog from back in the early 2000s. Things like that. Fascinated. Puzzles. So I have two types of puzzles that I'm interested in. One, these are the picture puzzles. So it's like a 1,000 piece, 2,000 piece, 500 piece, whatever photograph that's chopped up into little puzzle pieces, and you put it on the card table and assemble it. Piece it together. Puzzles. Generic puzzles. What am I looking for here? Basically, anything that looks pretty. I want pretty puzzles. So I'm not looking for sci-fi. This is where I'm going to go the opposite of everything else. I'm not looking for sci-fi. I'm not looking for horror. I'm not looking for fantasy. I'm not looking for anime. I'm not looking for video games or comic books or movies or anything like that. I'm looking for a couple sitting on a lake on a fishing boat with a sunset. I'm looking for things that Bob Ross would have painted. That's what I'm looking for in a puzzle. A bed of flowers, a sunflower field, a field of sunflowers, a cornfield, something that looks cool. Nature is a big theme for me for puzzles. Things like that. And then there's a symbol, then there's like not like puzzles, but there's like puzzle toys or puzzle things like Bop It, Simon, Rubik's Cube, things like that. What I'm looking for there are things that look impressive or look cool, which is hard to describe. And the last category I'm going to talk about is model trains. HO scale, absolutely only and ever HO scale. What I'm looking for are authentic locomotives. These are real, actual, you could go down to the train yard on the railroad tracks and see these cars. So authentic locomotives, authentic rail cars, etc., cabooses, etc., engines, everything else. So no Thomas the Tank Engine, but like actual authentic real life trains. So that's one thing I'm looking for. On the layout, I'm looking for pretty trees. Trees that I look at and think, yeah, those are cool. So I'm looking for like oak trees or pine trees, birch trees, things like that. Apple trees, things that look cool, look neat looking trees, bushes, etc. I'm building a small town, an ideal small town Americana, like just your generic fantasy small town, your everyday small town. So I want things like the general store, I want the grocery store, I want the fire station, the little firehouse, I want an assortment of different styles of churches, different styles of cute little houses, maybe a soda pop bottling factory that I can put downtown, a police station, maybe a Kmart or similar, Five and Dime, something like that, a little generic department or dollar store, something like that. Something that would look like the town I grew up in, which I'm not going to identify here, but the idealized version of that town. So what it was before it went to shit, before it shut down, everything closed. Or like your generic, the towns you see in Hollywood movies, like Gremlins, the town in Gremlins, that cute little idealistic town. So that's what I'm trying to build with model trains. No interest in model cars or planes or spaceships or movie things, so no Star Wars models or Star Trek or anything like that. No interest in that kind of stuff. I don't assemble models, but I do like model trains, HO scale stuff. And that's it. This is a 40-minute video, so thanks for watching. Stay cool and enjoy the channel.